Whew. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Oh, interesting that worked. How's it hanging? Hope everybody survived the great market correction of December 2024. I think we're down like 0.25% today. I'm an associate member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker-dealer and member of FINRA. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. My position disclosure should be the same as yesterday, except I'm out of Google. I'm out of my Google swing. It was not a big position, but I made a couple bucks in it. Got to my target. Got above my target, so it was a good one. All right. So let's jump in here. Like I said, we finished down about 0.25% here in the SPYs. Felt like more, but it wasn't. It was just 0.25%. The Qs finished down 0.25%. A little bit of a rally off lows into the close. And the IWM finished down 0.2%, with our TLT off 0.5% again, and the dollar a bit stronger. So some headwinds coming from interest rates in the dollar, creating some market weakness. Pretty much a relatively boring day with the SPYs, like always, it seems like. We gapped up this morning, mainly went sideways, and we were choppy. And then we rolled down into the close a little bit for a little bit of a weaker close. Though, seems like somebody on our team called the closing print pretty perfectly, so good job to that person. Market here, the technicals on the daily chart. I mean, this is just what we talked about. Like, a little bit of a pullback makes sense. This market's been so strong. This does not make the market bearish. It's a little bit of a pullback to space between 8 and 21 EMA. If anything, I would argue, and we have CPI tomorrow, so we'll see what happens. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. But if anything, I would argue that this little 2-day pullback here increases the probability that we move higher on the CPI number. I think that if we get an inline number or a small beat or a small miss, it's actually probably good for the equity market. The only time that we would potentially have a problem, in my mind, is if we had a very large beat or a very large miss. Very large beat, like a very hot number, I guess I should say, would mean that inflation's coming back, and that's a problem. A very large miss, and why are things slowing down so much here? But it sets us up for more Fed rate cuts. But I think we're getting the Fed cut next week, pretty much no matter what happens tomorrow. So, if anything, I think this little 2-day pullback begins to set us up for another pivot low, maybe for a rally into the end of the year at this point, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. The closer, I had mentioned, really starting yesterday morning, today's only Tuesday, right, that I'm trying to be less aggressive in my bullishness now, just because of the move that we had compared to where we were a few weeks ago. As we pull back, the closer we get to 600 bucks in the SPYs, though, the more bullish I'll become again, at least in the short run. I am not expecting that the high on Friday is the high of the year at this point. I think that we're going to make new highs on the year. I think that the buy flows are still largely there. It's just like I said, the market's got to have a little bit of give and take. We expected the market to loosen up a little bit on Monday. That happened. So we've got a little baby 2-day pullback into the equilibrium zone for the market. This is not a big deal. The Qs pulled back and touched the 80 MA on the daily chart. Not a big deal. There's room for them to pull back deeper. I would say the closer the Qs get to like 516, the more bullish I would become again. Whereas up here these last couple of days, I've been a little bit more cautious on the longs. The IWM I have felt is a little bit more concerning after yesterday's trading session, but it's also not necessarily the end of the world. I think in yesterday's afternoon meeting, I said it would be fine if the IWM wanted to pull back down to, 235.50, 236, create a pivot low, and then bounce back up. Today's low is just a little bit below 236, so a little bit of a doji here for the Russell. But broadly speaking, there's just not too much to talk about with the market today. A little bit of a technical correction, 2-day technical correction in front of the CPI. I think that overall this market's still viable into pullbacks, into pivots, but let's see what happens with the CPI tomorrow. As far as individual stocks go, there weren't quite as many setups out there, I felt, this morning as we had over the course of the last couple of days. Almost every day recently, it seems like there's been some, and it's funny because I've been so bullish on the market, but I've made pretty good money on the short side within the confines of this up move overall, because there's been pretty good extension trades to take advantage of on most days. You know, whether it was that little couple day trade in that Walmart, or when we were shorting UMAC, or when we were shorting some of those quantum computing names that get a little bit too silly, or even though I missed it yesterday, SLUN up at $16, or Palantir yesterday, or MSTR when that went parabolic in the second half of November. There's actually been a lot of good price action underneath the surface for individual stocks to take advantage of like this day 3, day 4 gap up that we're getting to coming on the other side. And that's been all within the confines of a pretty, bullish SPY. I felt that the setups were kind of lesser today. After we had a little bit of a pullback yesterday, and the momentum cohort had a per the Goldman Sachs note that we read this morning, the momentum cohort had its worst trading session yesterday in 2 years, which is hard to believe when you still, Palantir had a bad day yesterday, but stock's still trading at $72, But the pullback yesterday in a lot of those momentum names, I think, took away some of those types of trading opportunities that we've been able to capitalize on recently. I still was able to make a few dollars short Amazon as a day trade, but it was really not an aggressive trade at all. We did a pretty good job today, I think, on shorting Palantir as it approached this $75 area. I was able to make a bunch of extra cash for myself while still kind of maintaining my core position by trading this thing pretty aggressively basically in this area, in this like 74, 75 area. I didn't believe that we would be able to just negate yesterday's candle. I thought that Palantir would be more of a range day with risk to the downside, and I know Josh was all over that trade as well, so that was a decent little one. I didn't take it, but the Boeing long through 160 that was called out in the morning meeting was also a great trade. The risk on it was very appropriate, gave really good follow through. Boeing had a little bit of news this morning, and there was a very clear technical break through that 160 area. Micron, on the other hand, which I was looking at for a break higher above that 104, was a complete failure. I just didn't know, and now maybe the market's telling me in hindsight, I didn't know to what degree the CHIPS Act money that Micron is getting was already priced into the stock. And that was the biggest thing I was saying with a couple things this morning, that I just didn't feel like I had enough information to give myself a full edge. It's never the news itself that moves the stocks. It's the news versus expectations. So if the expectation was that Micron was already going to get all that money, or potentially even get more money than that, then the stock's going to sell off. If the expectation was not that they were going to get all that money, then the stock's going to break out and rip up. And in this case, I still haven't done the research to know what the expectations were, but it's very clear that they sold the stock down. And these semiconductor names just continue to be really crappy recently. AMD giving a day 2 to the downside after the breakdown it had through support yesterday. NVIDIA in some ways has been a better one, but this thing weakened back out to this 135 zone. The semis have just not been where it's at. Bill posited earlier today that the market is switching its AI thought process, for lack of a better term, to going from I keep calling them the rails of AI. I think the term that Bill used was like the picks and shovels. Same concept. And switching over to more the software companies that are going to have accretive revenue from AI. So we'll see if that's the case or not overall. But these semiconductor stocks themselves have not been trading well recently, and it's kind of been a sector to, I don't want to say avoid, because I actually thought that AMD was a great short yesterday, and we had communicated that yesterday. So there's some opportunities there, and if AMD has another big day to the downside, the extension there will make an interesting extension buy setup. So I'm not saying that they're to be avoided, but it's not what it was, where it was just like buy the dip in NVIDIA, buy the rip in NVIDIA, buy the in-between in NVIDIA, buy NVIDIA anytime, anywhere, any place, and you're going to make money. It seems like that's not the case anymore. So these names are just not trading as well as they were. You actually have this NVIDIA almost like retesting support here at this 135. SMCI gave a little bit of a day 2 to the downside, but that really just tested the ADMA on the daily chart. So, we've got some pockets of weakness coming from these semiconductor stocks, which is a little bit interesting, and they totally failed that Micron down. And Intel today was atrocious also. It broke down this bearish consolidation to the downside without the ADMA even catching up to those highs yet of the bearish consolidation. So semis have just been absolute trash. But yeah, the Boeing trade was pretty decent. It sounds like a couple of you guys caught that. I don't really have anything else to talk about. Google was nice, but I thought that the intraday price action on it was a little bit tricky. It was just nice for me as a swing. The Amazon trade I took actually ended up being my third best name on the day, even though I didn't take that much size. It was just a kind of a cute little trade here where I was shorting in front of 229-ish with that 230 resistance, and I only caught a move down to 226 on it. I did not have even as big of a target as I had yesterday. And I guess that's really it. We just got to wait for CPI. We got GameStop out here after hours. What's GameStop doing now? GameStop's trading up 60, 70 cents after hours on its earnings report. And that's it. That's all I got. I am happy to answer any questions that anybody may have on anything in the whole wide world. So bring them at me. And then I'm not seeing anything in the VTF for the moment. In the YouTube, someone's asking about Palantir. Not sure what specifically you want to know about it. So Palantir right now is doing exactly... That's a good question. Palantir right now is doing exactly what I was kind of expecting when I was comparing that MSTR chart, where this MSTR had the day 4 gap to the upside, where it went parabolic, that super extended, gave a very similar candle to what Palantir did yesterday. This nasty, heavy, negative Maribozu on for MSTR, it was maximal volume. For Palantir, it was also the most highest volume day that Palantir has had, with the exception of its earnings day. But it basically came down to the ADMA, and then it spent the next 2 days kind of resting in front of that ADMA, but never really retracing a ton of the big down day before breaking down to the 21. That's kind of what I'm looking for to occur from Palantir as well, and it's pretty much what happened. So, we had the big negative Maribozu day down to the ADMA on an increase in volume. Today, the stock, which it's held this ADMA perfectly the entire way up, so that's a big place for it to break. It held it today, but not in a way that I'd be feeling comfortable if I was a bull. A little bit of an upside retracement of yesterday's move, which actually led to a good shorting opportunity in that 74-75 area, like I just described, but closing on lows and just applying some weight onto this ADMA. So we'll see if the same thing happens tomorrow, but this weight on the ADMA, I would expect, gives way to a break of it at some point, which probably triggers the next wave of selling, which gets you down to the 21 EMA, and then we'll see what happens from there. Then I would honestly expect a little bit of a bigger bounce, and we'll see if things wedge out a bit. This will also move, obviously, based on what the market itself is doing. I'm just going to stick with the YouTube for a second, then I'll come back to the VTF. I had the same plan for Micron today. When you are doing extra research, are you literally browsing as many websites as possible and looking for articles about specific news, or do you have any verified websites? So all I primarily do is I use the virtual trading floor to see the news and headlines initially. So we saw the headline on Micron getting the money from the CHIPS Act. Then again, you want to confirm what that is versus expectations, which would have required a little extra legwork beyond the VTF. So I don't have a specific website that I necessarily use for that. Honestly, I just think for that type of information, I probably just would have done a Google search and just kind of hunted around a little bit to see what was expected from the CHIPS Act, because I just genuinely don't know. But it's not too often that I need to do that. But I really just would have done a basic Google search. You might even be able to do like a chat GPT question, and it might be able to just pull the information for you, and then still probably want to make sure you confirm that. Do Chinese stocks still look bullish? Do Chinese stocks still look bullish? I don't know. They gave back some of their gains yesterday, but it's not even a pullback to the moving averages, so it's not the end of the world. I used yesterday's move in the China stocks to really take off some risk and some exposure and lock in some profits on the Chinese names. I'm concerned that they're just going to be a little bit heavy throughout the end of this calendar year, and that a real move come from them in 2025, unless news comes out from the Chinese government that's viewed as very bullish, which you caught a little bit of that yesterday. But again, I use that as an opportunity to reduce risk. I got out of yen entirely yesterday and booked that profit. So I still like them, and I think that they're okay technically. It's a big pullback today, but they are still above the recent levels that they got above. So it's okay. But let's see how this trades in the next few days and how it sets up a little bit further. What level do I think AMD can find a bottom at? We'll see. I would potentially begin to look for an RDR tomorrow. I would prefer to get one more down day and look for the RDR after that. I guess there's some absolute support of this positive Maribozu absolute low in August on that big gap down. That's at 120.150. So that's the only real level to see to the left. But I would just look at that level in conjunction with the extension as it works its way down to try to find a setup to potentially buy. But that buy would be just looking for a short-term bounce. This AMD chart's very broken below 135. Very broken. And that ADMA is catching up to that price. So if I can get, another down day tomorrow and then a gap down to, 120 the day after that, I'm just kind of making up some numbers here, but you get the point. Then I'd be like, all right, let me look for the bounce back trade. There's a good risk reward on a bounce back to the ADMA on the daily, but I don't think that reverses the stock. I think that AMD actually looks terrible right now. I'm long. I'm still in the money on my long because I traded it really well for a period of time in here, and the position that I have on it is much lighter than it was at certain points in the past. So I'm, kind of letting a position move against me a little bit just based on the fact that I'm playing with the house's money. But I'm looking to size up for the bounce back trade when I get the right opportunity, but this thing does not look right to me. You added it to your long-term account at 135 after reading through the most earnings report, which I thought was great. Yeah, it was, but then it got hit with that bad news on Friday. Amazon came out and said that they were not. I don't know. You should look up the headline for yourself. I don't remember what the specific headline was, but look it up yourself. It was Amazon not wanting to use AMD chips anymore. Is the sum of it. But go Google it and read it. And that, changes the business a little bit. So I'm just going to stick with the YouTube real quick and then go back to the VTF. And so usually I put the VTF first, but it's just a little easier for me in the moment. From Daddy Trades in the YouTube, I'm on your side with the Bitcoin thesis. I think the crypto black swan is if when a major crypto brokerage like Robinhood or Coin gets hacked, data breached. Last time that happened was Mt. Gox in 2010, and Bitcoin dropped 90% off that occurrence. Granted, Bitcoin adoption was nowhere near where it is today, but I would assume a 20% drop minimum. Okay, yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I don't think that Bitcoin's been trading right either. Looks like the AI theme is strong again. Can you take a look at some of these stocks? What did AI end up doing today, actually? Oh, they bought it back up. This AI traded crazy on that earnings report. Traded up to almost $50 after hours yesterday, just to trade down to like 36 in the pre-market, and then it looks like they rallied this thing all the way back. I actually didn't look at this a single time during the day today. I thought that report was good. but not great. But sometimes these wild stocks, you just never know. SOUN. So for me, these are just short-term trading vehicles. I definitely don't really believe in SOUN. I'm not saying it's a zero, but should these stocks be going from $5.50 to $16 in a few week periods of time? No, I don't think they should. But that upside extension, like that move into $16 for SOUN, created a phenomenal short trade yesterday. And now we'll see what happens as it satisfies this upside extension and potentially resets up and gives a pivot low. I would not. I mean, if SOUN gave an inside day today, so if momentum comes in tomorrow, you could look for the inside and up if a ton of volume is there. But outside of just like a quick momentum scalpy type of trade, I would not be buying this SOUN for big picture unless it resets up better on this daily chart, lets these moving averages catch up, builds out a better wedge, builds out a better pattern. Would not be chasing this stuff here. And if anything, I feel like the wind is starting to come out of the sails a little bit on some of these stocks that have just been going absolutely berserk on the upside, which is something that Josh was saying a little bit also earlier in the VTF. From Alan, you've talked about your previous career as a fighter. How would you compare your daily life now as a trader to how your life was previously, considering things like training and preparation, etc.? Most of my fighting career, I was a professional trader at the same time. I started fighting amateur in 2007, I think, and then I turned pro in 2009, and I joined T3 in 2010. So I was already fighting professionally for like a year and a half or so when I actually joined T3 for the first time. So for a very long period of time, and I retired at the end of 2018. So I had like a 9-year professional fighting career after a 2-year amateur fighting career. For those 8 years that I was trading with T3 while fighting professionally, that was just literally my entire life. It was literally, I didn't really have much of a social life. I didn't really go out too much. I didn't really go out for drinks too much. A little bit in between training camps I would, but my entire life was just training for fights and training for trading and trying to become a better trader. It was really kind of impossible to do anything else. Having retired from fighting, it's opened my life up to be able to do some other fun things with the free time that I have there. So, a lot more traveling and skiing and stuff like that, which is great. But there is a lot of crossover, I think, with the discipline that's required for high-level athletics and the discipline that's required to be a professional trader. And that word professional is really important there. And I've spoke about this at one point in an afternoon meeting in the last 3 or 4 months or so, but it just kind of comes back to my head as I say it. That term professional trader, that term professional fighter, there's a big difference between an amateur fighter and a professional fighter. There's a big difference between an amateur athlete and a professional athlete. And for me, and I just go back to fighting because that's what, that was a sport that I competed at the highest level in the world. There was a period of time where I was the #1 kickboxer in a couple different weight classes in the whole world. And you could just see it. The best place to see it, like, somebody should just go and do a psychology case study on this or something, because it's just interesting, was before a fight, I don't know if people realize this, for the most part, every single fighter is in one of 2 rooms. So when you go, if anybody's ever been to a full boxing event, usually there's like between 12 and 25 fights on the card. Starting with amateur fights, which are short and quick, and then getting into the professional fights, which have a bigger production. But what you might not realize is that, in fighting sports, there's like a red corner and a blue corner. Every single fighter, typically, who's a red corner fighter, is all in one large room in the back. And every single fighter who's in the blue corner is in all one large room in the back. So you see every single fighter before they get out there, and you see them come back, sometimes a bloody mess when their fight is over, and you see the agony of defeat, and you see the thrill of victory from people as they come back into their room. But the interesting thing to me always was the behavior of people before they get out there. And, this is the difference between the amateur and the professional in that sport. And I think that there is a crossover to this sport, the sport of trading, if we want to make that analogy, where the amateurs in that back room would be like just going crazy, like just burning energy, just jumping around, nervous energy, jumping around, talking too much, being annoying, constantly running in and out of the room, stuff like that. And if you saw like a real veteran professional fighter, and the professional fighter is usually towards the end of the event anyway, so they might have hours to kill, or they have to just be hanging around kind of doing nothing. You might see a professional fighter who's going to be fighting for his life in an hour, asleep under a table on the floor in the back room. Or for me, I would be reading a book. I would want to get the hell out of that room because I didn't like seeing all those people. And, whatever the venue was that I was at, I would just try to go find a chair or a couch somewhere that was quiet, and I would just bring a book, and I would just eat an apple and read a book for an hour and a half or two. And then, once I would tell my trainer where I was going to be, and then he would come and find me. And then once it was time to warm up and prepare, it was like a switch would flip, and all of a sudden the mindset just turns on of, right, now it's go time. Now I turn on the energy. Now I stretch, I warm up, I hit the pads, I prepare mentally, I get ready to go. And that term, professional, really means something to me. And that's what we are trying to do as traders in my team here on this virtual trading floor. We are professional fighters. We are not amateur fighters on a Robinhood account. We are professional fighters on professional accounts with buying power that can do some serious damage in both directions. And you need to have that eye of the tiger mindset, and that means being mentally prepared. It means doing your training, which is your pre-market research. It means, creating those game plans, right? I would have a game plan for every fight that I would go into, and I would be mentally rehearsing that game plan. I already studied who the person was that I was going to be fighting. I knew that fighter's strengths and weaknesses. I had a game plan where I was trying to create a game plan that would put my strengths into his weaknesses and shield my weaknesses from his strengths. That's all pre-planned out. You spend 6 weeks in training camp mentally and physically preparing for that one moment of stepping in the ring to actually fight. Here, there's actually more fight time when you're a trader, because the market's open every single day. We're not preparing for 6 weeks for 1 day's worth of trading. Sometimes I guess we are, like we always want to be prepared for those A+ setups. You got to be mentally prepared to take advantage of those A+ setups when they come along, because they don't come along every day, to really be able to maximize your P&L. But it's the discipline, it's the research, it's the training. I am oftentimes one of the very first people who is logging in and saying good morning in the virtual trading floor every day. I mean, a lot of times you see me logging in and saying good morning in the virtual trading floor, and that means I'm starting to put orders into the market and stuff, and starting my research process at 5:30, sometimes 6 if I sleep in a little bit. Or maybe if I had something going on the night before, a little bit later than that. But you see me in there very, very early on most days, because I understand the preparation that I need to do in order to be the best me I can be when it comes to trading. So yeah, there's a lot of crossover there. I don't know. At the same time, life is about balance, and I do really believe that. Back when I was training for fights and trying to be the best in the world, I lived a fairly extreme lifestyle. And life is about balance. If I wanted to truly, truly, truly maximize my trading, I would quit alcohol entirely and never have a drink. I'd be 100% sober, because all the studies show that alcohol is just super bad for you. But last night I met with a couple old friends from the industry, and I went out and I had a few drinks with them, and I can tell you for sure that I woke up this morning and I was a little mentally groggy and mentally slow. So life is about balance. I'm personally not going to quit alcohol. I'm personally not going to quit having an ice cream once in a while or something like that. But the truth is, I would be a better trader if I did. So everyone needs to assess for themselves what balance they want to have in their life, and what's going to make them be at the highest mental capacity to be prepared to be the best trader that they can be. So appreciate the question there, Alan, and I hope that helps. From Robert, the $6.1 billion subsidy for Micron was largely anticipated, though some aspects might still have carried elements of surprise. Why it was expected alignment with the CHIPS Act goals. Semiconductor manufacturing. Micron, as the only U.S.-based memory chip manufacturer, was a natural candidate for significant findings. Thank you, Robert. That was from ChatGPT. Do you think this is the week tax sell-offs will happen? And if so, next week be the Santa Rally? So technically the Santa Rally is the week between Christmas and New Year's. It's the last week of the year through the first 2 days of January is typically where that happens. So the tax loss harvesting has to happen throughout this calendar year, basically. So we should be seeing that happening, I would say, broadly now-ish through the next couple weeks or so. And then you get the January effect after that, where the money potentially piles back in. January Gilbert. January, I think, historically has the most amount of inflows into the market in any given calendar year. And some of that's because of that. Cool. Thanks, Alan. Back over to the VTF from Bill. Am I doing anything tax-wise? So, what I tend to do when I'm having a good year, and I'm having a pretty good year, is into the end of the year I sometimes take more shots, to be honest, with the mindset of, and I don't know if this is necessarily the right way to go about it or not, to be totally honest. I'm just telling you what I do. If I'm having a decent year into the end of the year, around this time of the year, I'll sometimes take some shots. Because the idea is, it's like, if I risk a little bit bigger on this trade or take a shot here and that trade fails, sure, I never want to lose money, but I'm kind of reducing my tax burden a little bit by having made a little bit less. And if I make more money because the shot works, it's a good problem to have, right? And I can take all that extra money I made and use it towards the money that I'm gonna owe the IRS. So I do tend to take some shots into December when I'm having a good year. But then I think that the more important thing to note is on the other side into January. I'll never forget, I think it was 2013 into 2014. I had the biggest year that I had so far in my trading career. I had a pretty good year. And then in 2014, in January, I got obliterated. And then I still owed taxes on everything that I made in I think I got my years right, in 2013. And that sucked. That really sucked. Because then it was like, wow, I owe taxes on a whole bunch of money that I now just kind of evaporated here with bad trading in January. So if I'm having a good year in December, I sometimes will take some shots because I feel like it's kind of a win-win situation, even if I lose some money, even though that's not 100% true. But again, even more importantly than that, when I go into to January, I want to be like a good bit more conservative to start the year off. I want to not take shots. I want to make sure that whatever portfolio I'm swinging feels very clean to me, that it's not overextended, and that's the worst thing in the world. You know what David just said here. When you get hammered in January and then you still hear about that, and then you still owe the IRS from the previous year, and then it's like, where's this money going to come from? Doesn't the government realize I lost it already? So yeah. Uh, when will software and hardware switch? What will take? Hoctan? I don't know what Hoctan is. AVGO. Varun, you ask questions sometimes. I don't even think you're speaking English to me. You're speaking Varunese. Bringing up Lisa Turtle yesterday in the afternoon meeting. That was a real special one. I don't know if you're even asking me about AVGO, but I think AVGO looks great above 185. If you're asking for stocks that could benefit from that rotation that we were just talking about, I need to take some time to think about it. I know that there was a list that was published, I think from Goldman, but I don't fully remember the names, but it's probably going to be, well, obviously you got your big players like like Apple and maybe to some degree like a Google, but also you could think like a ZS maybe, or a Square or a Snow, uh, maybe like a Service Now, could be some of those names that might be able to benefit from that. From Vikas, thoughts about laggard sectors, industry groups, or subsectors that the market has ignored over the last few months that might rise? You mentioned the rotation of the AI. I am thinking more of the dogs that may rise again. Yeah, we'll see. I think it's more of a end of December into January thought process. Worth thinking about. To be honest, I don't have anything for you right now, Vikas. I gotta think about it. And if you have any names that you think fit that bill, I'd love to see them. So, I'm not gonna just try to force an answer. I think it's something that I need to spend a little bit more time thinking about. From Gilbert, did you just say I can't have ice cream? I'm not saying that at all. I am a sucker for cookies and cream ice cream. I love it. I try not to eat the stuff. I do try. Try is the key word. My old fight trainer, since we're talking about fighting so much to me, used to say oh man, my fight trainer was like this, like little old Italian guy who's like kind of vicious sometimes, and does not take any bullshit, does not take any excuses. And if you ever told him try, oh man, go run 10 miles and then do 1,000 push-ups and then throw 1-2 on the heavy bag 5,000 times when you get back from that. You say I try, I'll go try. Oh, forget it. You just made your life miserable. You don't say I'll try. He would lose it, because trying is failing with honor, and he doesn't want to deal with failures, is what he would tell me. I'm here to train champions. So I try, which means I fail with honor, to not eat sugar-filled crappy foods and fast food and stuff like that. I mean, I feel it. I tend to eat relatively healthy, but I went to, oh man, I already can't remember the name of the spot. One of these new fried chicken joints that's opened up. It's in Astor Place in the city. And I got their fried chicken sandwich, and it tasted pretty good, but man, did I feel like garbage after I ate it. fried chicken sandwich and some fries, I felt like absolute trash after. You know, so you put that crappy stuff in your body. I mean, sugar is just so bad for you. Sugar and alcohol are so bad for you. But you got to enjoy your life a little bit too. So I think, again, I think it's all about balance. But it seems like the more we learn about this stuff, the more we just see just how bad sugar and alcohol even is. And then I remember it used to be like, oh yeah, you could have like a couple drinks a week and it's not necessarily unhealthy. And now all the science seems like it's showing that even like one drink a month is bad for you. Any alcohol at all is bad for you. Like, oh, if I have a glass of red wine, it's good for me. You know, life's about balance, like I said. um, that was on the sugar comment. I lost my spot here in the VTF. Yes, yeah, you do have until April 15th to make your January back. That's right. When does an amateur become a professional? Do you find it with time, experience, performance, or all of the above? I would say all of the above. So, I mean, I can tell you in a sport, it's a very clear, obvious, fine line. You sign a contract and you start getting paid. That's the difference between an amateur and a professional, I guess, in that regard. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a good professional. There's some tomato cans out there. But if we're talking more about, you know, the trading world where you become that person who is that, you know, fighter who's nervous in the back and is jumping around and is wasting all that energy, the equivalent of that as a trader, to becoming the fighter who can fall asleep in the back room before a fight or go read a book for a couple hours. Um, uh, what's the equivalent of that with a trader? Um, I definitely think that a similarity with my own trading has been that um, the P&L hits don't really get to me anymore. Like I could have a big position on, I could be taking a P&L hit on it, and you probably don't know. By you, I mean like even you guys, as I'm talking to you, you probably can't necessarily tell. Um, Maybe a little bit. I'm probably a little bit happier when I'm doing well, and a little bit not as happy when I'm not doing as well. But I don't. I could be down sums of money from earlier that in earlier points of my career would have made me want to, you know, curl up in a fetal position and cry and die and everything else. And now be down that of money and just, you know, ask myself, all right, is the position right? And if the answer is yes, I'm totally fine and comfortable. So I think that just kind of comes with experience. Yeah, you're able to, what Bill is saying, you're able to keep your composure even in really crazy situations. When you hit that point where you can keep your composure no matter how fast things are moving, no matter how fast your P&L is moving, no matter how much your P&L happens to be down, I feel like that is that real junction where you have truly switched over to kind of being like a professional in this business. And that comes with time, experience, and performance. It really comes with all those things. Comfort in your game plans. You know, a big thing for me in tough spots in trading is I take solace in the game plan that I've developed for. Oh, thanks, Bill. Um, I take solace in the game plans that I've developed for my trades. The times that I'll still find myself running into problems is when I am trading something and I'm stuck in something, or I'm not doing something right, and I've deviated from what my game plan is supposed to be, and I'm doing something a little more willy-nilly, and my game plan's gone out the window. If that happens, I lose my confidence, because it's like, oh man, like I have this game plan, I'm not following it. Now I'm losing my confidence because I'm not following my game plan. I'm taking shots, I'm trading my P&L, whatever, and that's when bad things start to happen a little bit. cool. Thanks, Bill. From Michael J. It has been said that your best trading day is sometimes followed by your worst trading day. Is that true, and why? Had my best day so far in my career yesterday. It's been a while. I have like a whole bunch of days that are like in an upward range that's really good for me. But yet yesterday was like a very, very clear outlier on the upside for me. And I finished positive again today too. So my best trading day was not followed by my worst trading day. But that saying is true. And it's funny, I haven't heard that mentioned in a while. And I'm glad you brought it up because that saying is 100% true. I remember hearing that a lot when I was a new trader and thinking it didn't make any sense. Like, sometimes these traders are superstitious with some of their sayings, some things that they say and do, and there are a whole bunch of like common sayings in trading that I very much disagree with that we've spoken about in the past. As an example, you don't go broke taking profits. That's a common trader saying that I totally disagree with. I actually do think you can go broke by taking profits when you take them too early. But another common trader saying that you hear from people is that, a lot of times when you have your best day, it's followed by your worst day. And it is true, and the reasons for that are psychological in nature. You had your best day, you feel invincible. So now the next day you come in and you're much looser with your decisions. Because you're like, yeah, I got this all figured out. I'm the man. Like, let's go. Like, whatever I touch on Midas, it turns to gold. You start thinking that way, and then you get a little bit looser on your decisions on what you get involved in. You get a little bit looser on your decisions on how you manage risk, and then that really can lead to disaster. It's incredible how often, back when I was a new trader, and we were on the physical desk and I was surrounded by other new traders, it was incredible how often you would see it occur. Newer trader, trader within their first year just had their best day yesterday. High fives all around. Going to the bar, let's get some shots. Congratulations. Next day, it's all gone. worst day that I've ever had. But I do really think that the roots on that are psychological. And like most psychology issues with trading, the best fix for them, I really think, is having a good game plan. I think that if you build out good game plans, then you're disciplined to follow them. That is the answer to the vast majority of trading psychology issues that we all naturally struggle with as traders, including that one. So, thanks for the question, Michael. Thanks for bringing it up. All right, folks, anything else for today? Otherwise, I'm happy to wrap it up. About 5 o'clock here in New York. It looks like it's cold and dark out. All right, so we'll wrap it up. Have a great night. I will see you all tomorrow. And if you're on YouTube, give me the thumbs up and have a great night.